Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours. Thank you for joining us today, where we discuss your questions about digital technology, the internet, media production, that kind of thing. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia is our reader today. So, Alexander, what have we got for our first question?
First question this morning is from Jeffrey Powers in Madison, Wisconsin, USA. I got two new pieces of hardware to show, one that releases today.
Jeffrey, tell us about it. What's exciting?
All right. So I got these before I got on vacation, so I got to do some testing. And this one, the first one I'm going to show you, has been out for a couple weeks now. But this is from Magewell. This is the Director 1 unit. Their second version of the all-in-one hardware switcher, mobile switcher, perfect for the backpack streamer. So basically, as you can see, it's running my NDI feeds. It can run at 3 NDIs. It's got 2 HDMI ins, 2 USB ins that can run on UVC, and a lot more. You can bring in graphics. You can bring in everything else. It's just amazing. Let me just fix the color here. Boop. That didn't do it. There we go. A little bit better. But the whole point is that it will it'll allow you to do a whole bunch of switching right on the unit itself, so I can switch back and forth between my different cameras, bring in the other 2 HDMI. Up on top, it's got Wi-Fi and 4G antennas, which I didn't put on just yet. But yeah, you can do a lot of different things with network bonding. It's got 1 gig network on the bottom, SD card. It works in AHD and it works in a vertical format. You can set up shows like that. And the best part about that is, even though you got a touch screen here, you can do things like connect up a a portable monitor touchscreen and work it from there. Or you can use the app. They have a thing called the Director 1 app, which allows you to do all the switching, and you can do it remotely. So I could give Bill the ability to switch between the cameras. I could give Guy the ability to do the graphics, because there is a graphics section. There is even the telestrator on here, so I can actually draw onto the screen, so I can give somebody that ability, and nobody needs to touch this unit to make it all happen, which is pretty cool. And it's super cool, and it even comes with a hood. This is an 800 nit screen.
Oh, so 800 nits, so it's pretty close to outdoor if you're in the shade.
Exactly. So, and they do have a hood that comes with it, which actually has a double use, because it kind of protects these things if you don't have the antennas attached to it. So, but this has been out for a couple weeks. Pretty amazing what I've been able to do with this. So I could basically just turn around. I could come in and I could set up a 2 to 3 camera shoot in some place and tear it down and not even hook up to their power or use my own internet. It does have network bonding to it, so you can use a tether. Like I said, it's got 4G inside, which was the small downfall. I'd love to see it at 5G, but you can hook up your phone to it and tether it out through, I think it's Speedify, and be able to work from there. So,
did they have an MSRP? Did they suggest where it's supposed to land?
It's, I just don't know that price yet.
Okay, fair enough.
I haven't been looking at that part. I think it's around 1,100, 11 to 1,200, something like that. So
maybe below 1,000, probably street price if things go the way they normally do.
Exactly. So, all right, and then of course the new item that was technically released today, you probably heard about it. This is the OBSBot Tail 2, and this is. Let me do this. This is the Tail Air. That just dropped. This is the Tail Air. And so you can kind of see the difference between the two cameras.
Ooh, it's significantly bigger in profile.
It is bigger, but it is smaller when it comes to PTZ cameras, because most PTZ cameras are double the size. This will actually fit in a backpack. So I actually took it out and did some shoots of some bands. And with the battery life, this thing will go about 3 to 4 hours before it needs to recharge. Works on NDI, works on HDMI, SDI through on the back, USB connection as well. So you can do a USB UVC from here, or you can stream directly from the camera. And it's got a hybrid 12x zoom on it. So between optical and digital, you can get 12. So if you get about 6 to 8 feet back from a stage, you'll have a pretty decent picture. You go farther back, you'll start dealing with digital fragments.
Does it say how wide it is on the wide end if you want to get it up close like that and still get a stage covered?
It is, well, it's got a 1.5-inch sensor on it, and so like I said, if you get about 6 feet back, you can get from breast to top from a speaker. And of course, with the AI ability, it'll be able to follow the speaker around. You could choose to have it do through gestures or through tracking yourself. So works on all the apps, including the OBSBot Start and the OBSBot Live, which allows you to connect up multiple cameras. And then, of course, they have the remote control. There's also battery packs you can put underneath to extend the battery life.
What kind of battery form factor? Is it like a Sony NP or one of the common ones, or is it have a proprietary battery?
It's built-in battery, but
okay, so it's hardwired.
There's a unit on the bottom that, and I've got the power extender. It actually works for the tail, the tail air too. You can use it right onto the tail too. There's too many names now, and be able to get this one when it's on the tail air 2. That extends the battery life to up to 7 hours, and of course it's hot swappable batteries, so you can go back and forth. This one, I don't know how long it'll work on those batteries plus the internal battery here, but as you can see, it's charging up via Ethernet PoE.
Oh, so it has power over Ethernet, and I'm sure there's a USB-C or something else that'll take power into the unit from a battery pack if you have an external.
It's got USB-C power. It does. I think it comes with I can't remember. It's been a while since I unboxed it, but I think it comes with the cable and a wart. But of course, you'll want to get something with possibly, I'd say, a 3 amp power supply if you're hooking it up or anything. I usually hook it up with my Anchor. I have the Anchor power distribution unit, which I'll take.
And does OBSBot have their own remote control for pan and tilt and the rest of that, or does it just take Ethernet in and take the standard ones?
Do I have it here? Hold on. I believe I do. There we go. That's the remote control right there. And that's sold separately.
Okay, so it's got a little joystick in the center and then a bunch of controls. Are they assignable or is it all fixed?
Yeah, so you can connect up to 3 cameras, and it was meant for the tail air 2, but it works with the tail 2 perfectly. In fact, I was behind the drum set. I was at a local jam. I was behind the drum set, and I was controlling the camera back and forth with the presets as I was playing. So that was pretty sweet.
Fascinating. Now, does one of those controllers pan? What I'm thinking of is, if you're doing 3 cameras, can you do a separate remote control for each one, or is it something like push camera A and then move it, push camera B and then move it?
Yeah, there's 3 buttons on the bottom. That'd be camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. So you'd hit that and then hit your thing. Plus, this also, I don't have it turned on. It's also a laser pointer inside here. So if you're doing presentations, then you can be holding onto the remote as you're using it. Turn on and off the AI from the remote, which is a pretty cool thing. And like I said, it's separate from the camera. The camera is right now, I think, 1100. But with the size, like I said, it's something that you can put into your backpack and you can take with you, as opposed to some of the other PTZ cameras, which I usually have to put into a separate case, a rolling case, or something like that.
Nice. Thank you for the product look through. Nice. That's something we're always looking forward to, what the newest technology is that's coming out. And so thanks for stopping by this morning and helping us get up to date. Let's go to our next question.
This one is from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. When do you use UHD and when do you use 4K in describing video signals or formats? And how exactly do these higher pixel counts relate to resolution?
Alexander himself is going to start us off here. Alexander?
We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and yes, I know there are differences. So we should define the differences, and this is a multi-part question. So 4K resolution, we have a bit of a marketing problem. So in the world of cinema and production, true 4K is what's called 4K DCI, which I think it's digital cinema something or other. So it's a higher pixel count, and so there's a bit of a crop on what we know as consumers as what we define as 4K, which is a slightly lower resolution, which is 3840 by 2160, I believe. So there's a slight difference in aspect ratios. Resolution technically is defined as the sharpness and detail, whereas when you say 4K, that's really the frame size. But the thing is that it's often marketed as resolution. And so, yes, there are technical differences. For all intents and purposes, what most people know as when they refer to it, it's 4K UHD is what we know on our consumer grade TVs.
Alex Lindsay?
Yeah, we're giving up about 500,000 pixels. I think that's the real issue there. Between the 4K and the 4096 and the 3840 by 2160 is in the video world pretty much considered, when people say 4K monitor, 4K TV, 4K camera, it's generally 3840 by 2160. When we deal with film, we oftentimes refer to 4K as 4096. But there's an enormous amount of production that's done at both. But probably the vast majority of people who say 4K mean 3840. I know it's not accurate. 3840 by 2160. So that's how it works. Again, in film, that is a 4096, and there's cameras that will do that. But the vast majority of folks are doing video distribution and think of 4K as 3840 by 2160.
There you go. Hey, don't forget, we're taking your questions all the time. You can ask questions, chat about them, vote on them at our Mukana system. You just go to officehours.global/join, and we'll send you an email that kind of gets you started on the path to getting into the back end of the show and communicating with us. Again, that's officehours.global/join. And once you do that, one of the big perks is you can vote on the questions in the queue, which means that the more votes they get, the higher up they get, the quicker we get to them, and the longer we spend on those early questions, because that's what more people are interested in. So officehours.global/join gets you kind of into that system. Let's go to our next question.
Simon Ray in Midlands, UK. Is the panel aware of any tool that can strip out background music from a video or audio track, leaving the dialogue? I have a video I'd like to edit, but the background music will make the cuts obvious.
Alex Lindsay, can you help him out?
The one that I would probably start with is Moises. That is MOISES. And Moises is designed to take a music track and separate it out so that you have the vocals, the guitar, drum, bass, so on and so forth, all separated out into their own tracks. It's kind of amazing to watch. But there's lots of other ones. There's Lander, Soundstrip, even Logic. So Logic built into it may do it just by itself. So if you have Logic, it has a filter now that just strips those out and separates the major components from each other. But the one that I know that my daughter uses the most is Moises. She uses it to practice different instruments. So what she'll do is she'll separate it out, and then she can isolate drums or guitar or bass. Typically, those are the three that she's doing one of those. And then she can play with it, and then take it out and play all the other ones and play with the song. It's kind of magical. When I listen to the singing tracks, I'm always kind of confused about how they were able to pull all that out in the middle of all the other stuff that's there. We spend so much time trying to do that. So anyway, those are ones. David Brady also says he's had good results with Lalal, LALAL.ai for building stems. So that's another one you can look at.
Yeah, in my experience, the old ancient way of doing this was to take something that had a mono voice. This was kind of the opposite of what you're talking about doing. It has a mono voice and then some sort of stereo separated music track. And if you invert that, the voice disappears, which was the old goal. Now you're trying to do exactly the opposite. And the one thing that I've noticed is that even the AI ones, sometimes if the frequencies in the track you're trying to save mirror those in the track you want to get rid of, whichever piece of that there is, sometimes it can hollow out the remaining vocal a little bit. So I always listen a little carefully. If I'm ever going to do extract part of this audio from a full audio mix that doesn't have stems, I just want to make sure I listen very closely and see if it ate away at anything in the track I'm trying to save. the intelligence, the artificial intelligence stuff is getting much better at not hurting that and identifying what is speech and what is music and things like that. So I think you'll find some success here. But again, I just try to give it a really good listen after I've tried to extract something like that. Make sure that it isn't hurting it too badly, for whatever that's worth. Next question.
This one's from Scott Tupper in Livermore, California, USA. Guy, I know the Zowiebox can do many things. How are you using it in your Zoom ISO pipeline as demonstrated last week?
Guy Cochran's going to help us out here. Guy?
Yeah, good question. These are just tools. You know, you can buy really expensive tools, and sometimes you can buy really cheap tools. And the little Zowiebox is like $160, and basically it's an encoder that can encode an HDMI stream, or it's a decoder. And in the case that I was showing this demo last week, I pulled up my Splashtop, which I'll pull it up again, and you can see that in an Atem Mini Extreme, you have multiple HDMI or SDI outs, depending on which model you get. So up here in the output 1, I have programs set for output 1, but on output 2, I have the multi-view. And now anywhere on my network, because this Zowiebox is hooked up to this output 2 via HDMI, I can pick up this Zowiebox on another machine. So if I want to have somebody else calling the show and they're in mix effect, I can, be telling them, hey, I want the 3 up, the 4 up, and they can just be pushing these buttons, but they can be anywhere on the network and be getting that preview monitor, and they can see what's going on. So this is Zoom ISO. There's 8 participants in this mock-up meeting, and they're all going into, so Zoom ISO, you can see here is hooked up DeckLink Quad. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you can see in the corresponding Zowiebox multi-view 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you're seeing program here, you're seeing preview here, and then the media. And this is all stuff that you can customize if you want. But that's how I use it, is as a $160 encoder for the output of the Atem.
Jeffrey Powers, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I've also got the Zowiebox, and I've been using it. I bought it because I used it for I was doing some streaming, but the stream I wanted to bring in 4K, but the computer couldn't handle the 4K and streaming and recording. So the Zowiebox kind of helped with some of the work there. But right now I have it connected up just as Guy does. I'm using it as my multi-viewer because all my cameras are also doubled onto the Atem Mini, so they can record individual ISOs. But it also works. That same system also works with their Zowiecam 4K, not as bringing other sources, but you can create a whole show with graphics and overlays and everything like that through that whole system. It's just amazing what they're doing there, and it's only getting better.
Nice. Let's go to our next question.
David Brady in New York, New York. We are a Vimeo shop at work, and they recently announced implementing SRT into their contribution pipeline. What will be some of the benefits?
Alex Lindsay is going to help you out. Alex?
The main benefit is going to be more stable than RTMP. So the RTMP requires some communication back and forth for it to deliver the feeds that it has. SRT does not. And as a result, it will, in the same way that the HTTP requirements that are required for RTMP to work are not required in SRT. SRT tends to be a bit more resilient to network changes. It's not quite as resilient as Zixi, but it's definitely more resilient than RTMP. So you should be able to do that. Also, it can theoretically, it's just a wrapper. So SRT, you can put anything into it. So look at how they're speccing that. It's not exactly a it could be, you could be sending data, you can be sending video, audio, all those things over SRT. So take a look at what their platform is in the past, and I don't know where Vimeo is right now with their live structure. They don't really have a truly diverse back end. so they're, I don't know how much you get out of switching from SRT to RTMP, specifically with Vimeo, specifically with their live contribution. But if it's been working for you, it'll probably keep on working for you. But when things start, if something doesn't work on the back end, there's not a true primary backup, or there hasn't been up until the last couple of years.
Let's go to our next question.
Kyle Nesta in Philadelphia, producing Zoom shows and need to be physically on site myself. Control room in a multi-purpose area. I have to strike after each show. No loadout, gear stored in the same building. How can I make this setup mobile and modular while being capable?
Both Alex and Guy are going to help you. Alex is going to start us off. Alex?
Yeah, so it depends. It depends, as we often say. It depends on what kind of space you have to run in. Typically, when we're in the same space and we have a closet area or some area to put it in, we're going to build racks. So we're going to build racks that have these are rolling cases, and so these are going to be rolling cases of racks that we can roll somewhere. That way you can build everything into it that you need. You figure out all the wiring. It's on wheels. You just put and a lot of times the racks will actually have the doors on the front and the back will turn into tables and lock into the racks themselves. So there's a lot you can do there that makes it very compact and very efficient to make that work. We find that to be the entire building a full-on rack is a much easier way to deal with this, especially if you're loading in the same building. The things that you have to watch for when you do this is these racks will get very heavy, so they're gonna get up to 400 or 500 pounds. You need to make sure you have elevator access. You don't have little lips that you have to go over. You can roll through it. So those are things to pay attention to as you think about whether that kind of rack will work for you. You can get over little things, but we had one where someone missed when they took a picture of the outside sidewalk. From the angle that they had, it looked smooth, but if you shot it from the other angle, you'd realize there was a 4-inch drop, like a little step that was behind a building, and all of our stuff came in racks. Super exciting to get it over that 4-inch hiccup. So those are the kind of things you have to pay attention to, is really look at all those things that you have there. What we do is we build it all into a series of racks. So we'll have, and we tend to not build them higher than 52 inches. And that's because if we want to ship it, it's twice as expensive to go higher than 55 inches technically, but we stick with 52. It's twice as expensive to put that on a pallet and send it via rocket somewhere in the world. So you can go higher, and it's more convenient to have those. Now, remember, these racks can be built with, typically we'll have audio in one rack, video in another rack. You can have, if you're using one of the more compact 1ME panels, they actually are just the right width, oddly enough, to slide right in and out of a rack. You can get a sliding shelf for it. And then in audio, we typically mix comms in with that to make sure that those two are there. And then oftentimes we have another rack that's just shelves. So it's just the shelves, it's the tripods, it's the cameras, it's everything else that we need to have there. So you have these 3 racks, you kind of roll them in, they have everything that they need. When you put them back in the closet, they all just go into a little corner. Now, this all depends on whether they're going to give you a closet that's big enough to put 3 rolling racks into it. But I will say that once you get used to that, your setup time is about 45 minutes. And that's like you roll out, push all your cables out, and it's 45 minutes for a very complicated show. Can be done if you carefully put those together that way.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I've seen several examples that may help you. One is locally here at the University of Washington. They had multiple different rooms that they wanted to stream these lectures from, and so they would build up this rolling cart that they have 3 PTZs that they could easily grab these PTZs, drop them in the locations that they need to, and then they had a basic switcher that they could cut, and then the output was going, they had a hardline Cat5 cable that they would plug in, and that would push out to the world. Theirs was a lecture management system that was the output. The other one is our friend Greg Gibson. He does a lot of these political shows where the client actually said, hey, you don't need to bring that stuff in from your car every day. You can just keep it here. So what he built was a nice rolling rack, again, with the vMix system. So the switcher is a software-based switcher. The monitors, everything is in a nice rack, including the computer. So he had to swap out all the pieces of his computer that was a regular, like desktop tower, and put it into a actual rack. And then he has his Sony PTZs, which are the FR7s, and he has this nice screen where you can just tap on things. This is one of the great benefits of going to an NAB, because there's shops there that'll have these different cases, different trucks, and you get a lot of ideas as to, comms and tally lights and how other people are doing shows. So if you can get out to NAB, I highly suggest it, because you could talk to people there that specialize in this kind of thing, so that you're not missing any pieces of the puzzle. The other thing that I would look at is also Zoom Rooms with the automatic answer. You can have it so that a remote person can move PTZs around from within a Zoom room, and you could have that control given automatically to a trusted source, so that somebody doesn't have to be physically there with you. You could just say, "Hey, show up to this meeting at this time." Right-click on that camera, and it'll automatically give you control. That way, your life is a little easier in terms of who has to be on site and who's off site.
Alex, you want to come back in?
Yeah, and just to give you a sense of, this is like one that we built many years ago, so it just gives you a sense of what they look like. This is kind of the rolling rack here, and you can see it's a mixture of shelves. These just lock right on. These are and these ones are a little taller because they didn't have to fly. So there's the shelves, and you can see the 3 racks that are there. And so these ones we knew that we were going to build into a local location. Here's some PTZs that are all snaked together. There's Marty. You've seen him on the show maybe a while ago, looking at the mic setup there. This was an R&D unit, so that we were just kind of putting it together to figure a couple pieces out. And this is a much more simple one. So it gives you a sense of, when you start doing those racks, again, they get heavy, and you have to make sure that you have a place for them to go. But when everything's all wired together in one long rack, it increases the stability of your show dramatically, because you're not rewiring things all the time, and it's just a much easier way to do it. We had a show where we had 26 shows over a couple months, and we were able to keep it in the arena, and having a place to just roll them all out and then open them up, life-changing. So.
Much more efficient. By the way, if you haven't gotten enough of Office Hours, and we hope you haven't, there are extra shows, new shows coming up all the time. Extra Hours is on Mondays. For those of you around the world, if the main show timing doesn't work or isn't convenient for you, that's in the evening, 6 p.m. Most of these shows are at 6 p.m. A Tuesday coming up next week is our 5th anniversary, and we're going to do a little celebration of that. So we've been here doing this for 5 years, hopefully helping all of you out. We'll be making more announcements about this as we go through the week, so pay attention to that. Tonight, Thursday, David Paskin does The Rundown. It's a new show on Thursday evenings, and it's a lot of fun. So those are some of the things you can watch when you're not watching the main show. Let's get back to the main show, now in progress. Next question.
This one is from Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California. From the QR code, what have we learned from Enterprise Connect this year? Is Aigentic a real thing yet?
Alex?
I learned that Enterprise Connect exists. I'm sorry, it's too close to NAB that I wouldn't pay as much attention to it. So I think that I looked at what you did. I searched for it. I was like, oh, we should cover that, or we should at least know that it's happening there. So I haven't learned anything from it yet, but now that I know it's there, we can put it on our calendar for next year.
There you go. Next question.
Joaquin Matus from Imperial Valley, California, another QR code question. At the highest end OB truck and broadcast facility level, what solutions are being used for ST2110 control and orchestration? Are vendor solutions like GV Orbit, MAGNUM-OS, and Magellan SDN used, or are they designing proprietary GUIs with NMOS backbones?
Alex Lindsay is going to help us out here. Alex?
We know some folks that are running 2110 trucks. While I don't have the answer, I think that they might. So we'll reach out to them and see if we can't get them on the show for maybe a special, or even just a little opening, and maybe we'll get some pictures of it. So stay tuned for that. I might see them in a couple weeks, so we'll see what we can do. Yeah,
they've been doing outdoor broadcast trucks for a long time.
Well, these are
huge.
I mean, the big change was to 2110. So there's not that many trucks that are all 2110 right now, but there is a handful of them that are doing some pretty high end work, and so that's the thing that's pretty new.
Next question.
Walt Palmer in Lewis, Delaware. Was video of the SpaceX Dragon rescue splashdown virtual or live?
Alex, did you watch it?
I didn't. But I will say that it definitely could be live, because if you were SpaceX, if only you had satellites all over the world that you could point up and get a stream. It seems
Good
like
point.
It would make sense that it could be live anywhere in the world. So I'm going to guess that it was live, but I have no idea whether it was or not.
I'm still flabbergasted they can land a rocket on a barge. That to me is just wow.
Pretty amazing set of control
science. Big brains working on these problems. Next question.
From the QR code, Manzi Alain Elize in Kigali, Rwanda is asking, I work with small live production company in Rwanda. What is a good way of sending animated lower thirds into an Atem switcher?
Alex?
It depends. So as we often like to start our favorite beginning. So a couple things that matter is, are you using an HDMI-based switcher or an SDI switcher? Are you able to give up 2 channels, or you only have 1 channel? These are all things that matter because it depends on how you want to bring your graphics in. So in a SDI-based version of the Atem switcher, because the Atems there's a wide range of them, you can bring in what's called key fill. So you can identify one channel as the fill, which is the color, and the other one is the key. That means you're going to send in 2 video outputs from your computer to that. And from there's a variety of different tools that you could use. On the high end, you have things like VizRT and Expression, but on the less expensive side, there are Blue Titler. There is Softron makes a series of CG generators, but you can also, there's key fill that can be pushed out of MIDI, out of ProPresenter, out of QLab. All of those support this key fill output, but you'll need on your computer to be able to send 2 SDI signals. So you'll need a decklink card that's going to be able to push those out. But all of those playback systems are capable of seeing that decklink card and pushing out key fill. Mimo Live does it as well. So this, and I think I know some people that are using vMix for these kind of playouts as well. So it depends on whether you're a Mac or PC. So there's a lot of different tools that will output those, and those will come in as key fill. You can't do that with HDMI because the HDMI can't be the frame locked, and so it won't. You'll see the key and the fill sliding against each other ever so slightly. So it's hard. You can use it if it's just a still and you're bringing it up. You can't use it if you're animating it. And then another one that we use for this show is called SPX, and SPX is. The software itself is free, the software that pushes out is free. You just need a PC to run it. It's called Casper CG is the software that'll output key fill, and SPX is the software that we use to do all the graphics that you see here. So that's another option for you to look at. And Tuomo, who writes SPX, is part of our community. So those are your key fill options. When you don't have a key fill, now some people what's popular is to use things like a green screen. Don't do that. The reason you should never use a green screen for your lower thirds, especially if they're animated, is because all of our video is set to 422 instead of 444. And so when you do that, you're going to see little aliasing along the curves, around the circles, around anything at an angle, because the color itself is half the resolution of the video. And so you're going to see stair stepping. So you should never use green to do that. What you should do is just go ahead with a Luma key, and that's built into every Atem switcher. It means you have to think about your design a little bit. And so what happens is that a lot of times we'll take our video, and this can be out of Playout B, it can be out of almost anything else. When I started doing stuff for Salesforce, it was all out of Keynote. so we built all of our lower thirds in Keynote because we didn't know any better, and they worked fine, and they were animated, and they flew in, and so on and so forth. And so what we did is our black is set to pure black. We take the blacks in our lower third and we bump them up by 15%. And this is an very old-fashioned way to key in titles. We bump it up by 15%. On a 255, that's moving your black to about 30, a little bit more than 30, 35. And so then we have it. You won't notice it in the broadcast. Like if you bump it up, you won't see the difference. But now we have this area that we can key out. Obviously, if you have graphics without any blacks in them, so if they're all like red and green and blue and they don't go to black, then you don't need to worry about bumping anything up. You can just put them in and roll them through. So those are at that point, you can start to Luma key these in, and anything that will put out video to your switcher will work. And again, we've used Keynote is a great way to get started, but you could use something like Playout B. The main thing is you just want to make sure that it's a good signal and it's not, whatever you're playing out isn't compressed. And so because any kind of aliasing or any kind of macro blocking will show up in the video. So those are some ways to get started with that. If that gets you down the path, but not all the way, ask more questions. It's great to have your questions here from Rwanda.
Jeffrey Powers, you had some additions?
Yeah, I'll add to that. And it really depends on if you're using HDMI, NDI, or SDI. The Zowiebox, which we talked about earlier, also can do some really rudimentary graphics, but it'll also bring in NDI, and then you can use something like SPX to bring that in there and then transfer it to like an Atem Mini or anything that's HDMI based.
That last question came in off our QR codes. If you'd like to do the same thing, you can simply type askofficehours.global into your web browser, any kind of web browser. That's askofficehours.global. Or you can use the QR code that I just tossed up on the screen. Just take a shot of that, and it'll get you to the same place. And that's kind of the quick way into our system. It's not as full-featured as coming through the Makana system, but if you just want to toss a question in, askofficehours.global is your quick path. Next question, please.
Harshi Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida, USA. Growing up, I remember my Casio keyboard having a power supply that can be adjusted to it. But what if you lost a power adapter for, say, Hue Bridge and others? What would you use without an identical replacement?
And Jeffrey Powers, start us off.
The old Radio Shack. That's what I remember these for. This is what he's probably talking about with the Casio, which I had several of them growing up in different types and formats. Now I'm not exactly sure which one you would need for your Hue Bridge. I'm assuming it's you're looking for something similar to this. And Amazon has several different iterations of this type of plug outlet. One where, as you saw, these all the cans were on one area, and then this one has replaceable cans right here. And then, of course, if you have to plug in multiples, you can check out some of the guitar options, music options, because they have power units that can plug in 3 or 4 different things, and you can save yourself some wall space, wart space, as if you're using this for production.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, be very careful because you can buy these different ones. This one's off of Amazon. It's called a Wii Foamy, and it has the variable attenuation for your voltage, which will go. This one will go all the way up to from 3 all the way up to 24 volt. In the box, it has all the different sizes of adapters. The important thing is to make sure that you look at the diagram and figure out which way the polarity is, because you can fry stuff very easily. So in the box with this, there is a reverser that'll kick it to the other way. So there will be a little diagram that'll show if it's the center pin that's hot. So if you screw it up, and I've had employees do this where they burned out $400 network switches just by plugging in the wrong adapter, and poof, there it went. So be careful.
Alexander?
Yeah, so I run into this all the time. I get a lot of questions of this. You can buy universal power supplies. There's a lot of them out there. The ones that I've had great success with are by a brand named Benson, B-E-N-S-N. And the cool thing about those, and I'll show you that in just a second, the cool thing about those is that they are, in addition to offering selectable voltage, they are modular. And so I'll show you that right now. So this is what it looks like. And this one, I think it's either 3 amps or 5 amps, so it provides a lot of current. So you've got selectable voltage. It's just this, it has this digital button system here. And then these interchangeable tips, and it gives you all sorts of different typical DC barrel connector sizes, including USB-Cs at right angles as well. And they just snap on to the end. And then this little adapter here, this is for flipping the polarity between center pin positive and center pin negative. Now, always check this stuff. You're going to want to look at the manufacturer specifications. And now where it gets tricky is not all electronics are very good at telling you. Sometimes when you look at the back of the actual hardware where the DC barrel port is, it will actually have the diagram that will show you if it's center pin positive and negative. And sometimes it will say the voltage and the amps, but not always. So sometimes you have to really dig through the manual and dig through the product pages from the manufacturer to try to find that information. If you have the original power supply, it will tell you. And also if you check, so just so you know about polarity too, This diagram you will see on a power supply typically. So this little like crescent moon type thing, the open section with the line pointing out is pointing to what the actual polarity is. So in this case here on the left side, that would be a center pin positive, and then on the other side here on the right, this would be center pin negative. Always check this stuff. It is absolutely crucial that you're not underpowering it, and it's okay, for example, if your equipment, let's say it requires 1 amp of power, it's okay if the power supply can provide up to 3 amps. It's not okay if you try to feed it 500 amps because that's half of what it needs.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. And I think everybody's gotten used to reading these little diagrams on the back of transformers. I think I probably have 40 or 50 of those in various places in my life. And the current, whether it's 3 amps, 5 amps, you don't want to underpower something, particularly small lights and things like that can use some of these we call them wall warts, but transformers on a small plug. And you cannot get the maximum power out of a light if it's underpowered, if it doesn't have enough current, and the voltages are important. So it's good to pay attention. You've heard a lot about positive and negative polarity. These things are all important. So don't just grab anything and plug it in and think because it's the right size or shape transformer that it's going to power a piece of equipment correctly. Pay attention to those labels and those legends and stay safe. Next question.
Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri. My company finally has our first multi-year corporate-ish, profitable-ish client. I want to improve their off-the-field client experience. Any tips? Do people still send fruit baskets?
I just want to give you an award for the best phrased, because we've always had, almost all of us who started this have had corporate-ish, profitable-ish clients at some point. Jeffrey Parr's going to start us off, and then Alex is going to come in.
Well, I'll give you an answer-ish. How's that? So yeah, I get from some clients, I definitely get stuff, like Christmas cards or anything like that. One client would send a holiday brittle, peanut brittle every year that they made, which was nice. But of course, you might not be able to do that. But having swag, it's actually a twofold in some cases. So if you're giving your client, let's say, a coffee mug with your logo on it, and they use that becomes a promotional item more than it becomes something that's swag for them. So there's many different ways that you can do it. There was one time, actually back in 2021, when my dad passed, one of my clients actually sent a gift basket consoling me from that, because they read it up on Facebook. So if you've got somebody that, or if you want to be that somebody that wants to do the Gary Vaynerchuk style promotion, then this is a great way to do it. And there's many different ways to do it. You can connect up with any promotion companies, and they'll give you a whole ton of ideas of where, when, and how, why, and how to send it.
Alex Lindsay.
We've done some of those things. I mean, in general, we until we really know a client, we try to figure out what they value, like what's valuable to them, what do they want to see. Just sending them stuff that's kind of generalized is not something that I've done very much of. I will admit, when someone sends a nice little card like, "Hey, it was great working with you," I was like, "Oh, it's kind of nice," So it's a kind of nice thing to do. The primary thing that we do that keeps and grows our relationship with clients, though, is that we pay very, very close attention to the intention of their events. So what I would say is all these things are good. I'm not going to say don't do them. I don't do very much with them. I'm kind of not known for my bedside manners in that respect. But the thing that I pay attention to is that I am looking at their events. I'm looking for what makes impact for them, and I am constantly customizing my build and my process to basically become part of their, become almost an external part of their team, or an internal part of their team. I want to make sure that we meet in whatever format they want. We figure out everything down to like what colors they like on the table, how they like to get things, how they like to see things. We try to figure out all of those things that we can do. We're constantly watching them. I know this will sound crazy, but a lot of clients have idiosyncrasies about what they like and don't like. They make side comments about things. They talk about things at the very beginning and the very end of the show. They'll be joking about things and talking about them. We pay attention to all of that, and we're tweaking everything, and we're looking for opportunities to better serve them during the actual show and in the entire process ramping up and in the entire process ramping down. And fundamentally, the last thing is we don't fail. We do whatever, and we make sure that they know what those things are. But so all this other stuff is fine, but A, be reliable. B, make sure that their experience is not just about having the show work well. It is about having the show be an effortless and enjoyable experience for the client. When everything's done on time, when everyone knows what they're doing, when people are just waiting for them and ready to jump on whatever's necessary, and they go, "Oh, that's easy." They go into, "I should do this more." Like, we should do more of this. Like, we should do this all the time because it's easy and fun, and it's not something that stresses us out or puts our jobs in. If you're in a corporate environment, every live stream puts your job at risk, and as soon as they feel like it's not at risk every time they go live, they'll do it all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to add a couple of things from my years in corporate. Number one, be careful, because often clients have limits on specific gifts they'll allow into a particular person. So we always went with the generally edible gifts that can be sent to the department as opposed to a person are always safe. You'll never get in trouble with the compliance department and corporations for doing that. So, and another little story I'll tell you very quickly. Once upon a time, we were doing a lot of advertising work for our local car dealer, and they were a Cadillac dealer, so they had big budgets and they were comfortable with a lot of things. I looked at my bottom line one year and I realized that they sent me a Magnum of champagne. And I went, "That's kind of nice." And then I thought, wait a second. I looked back, and sure enough, I had sent them more money than I took home that year. They were constantly late. The client was constantly late, and we had to run things through fast to get it in the newspaper for the big Friday sales. And I realized that when you get too good a gift from somebody that you're a vendor for, it almost can be a signal that things are a little out of whack. Be careful and audit your books very carefully in those circumstances. Just a couple of tips from my career. Next question.
From the QR code, Chris Taylor in Carlsbad, California. Please explain what happens if a video is shot at a specific frame rate, say 4K 60 frame rates per second, then bring that footage into an editing program and convert to a sequence that is a different resolution and frame rate, say 1080p 30 FPS. Is that the best case?
Alex, start us off here.
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. If you're going from one frame rate to another with an integer change, you're going to be somewhat okay, and we'll talk about some of the issues there. But if you're going from 60 to 30, you're throwing every other frame away. If you go from 60 to 24, now you're throwing kind of random frames away. So if you need to go down to 24 from 60, it's not random, but it's like every fifth frame or every sixth frame gets thrown away, and so it's not as smooth. When you go from 60 to 30, you're throwing every other frame away. The issue that you're going to have is not so much the scaling, because usually the scaling improves things. If you're going to do effects or other things, like I just shot something for my kid's school, and we shot it at 4K, and it's a little grainy because I had to gain up to be able to capture what was on stage. I'm going to do that degraining. I'm using Neat, which is a plugin for Resolve, and so I'm going to remove that grain, but I'm going to remove it at 4K. And then I'm going to scale it down to 1080p before the delivery. Or actually, I'm not doing it. My son is doing it all. So I just point him in the right direction related to what to do with the software. So, but we want to do those corrections. Anything that you're trying to do that has anything to do with resolution, what we would call a convolution kernel. So if it's got a convolution kernel, it's not a pixel math. So color correction is pixel math. Blurring, sharpening, doing any kind of effects is a convolution process, and you want to do those at the high resolution before you bring them down. So that's the only thing that I would check for. So if you're going to try to sharpen something, denoise something, any of those things, do those at the full resolution, and then re-render it and then bring it in. Or in some cases, the software will continue to operate at that higher resolution. You have to just check depending on what NLE you're using. The one thing that you're going to give up when you go from 60 to 30 is you're gonna have basically 90-degree shutter. So if you are if you're going from 60 at 60, if you have a 180-degree shutter, when you go to 30, you're going to have a 90-degree shutter because you just threw half the frames away. So the jump between each one it's effectively having a 90-degree shutter to it. So everything's going to look a little bit more stuttery, a little bit more framey than it did originally because you threw half the motion blur away. So, so that it should have been opened for a little bit longer for that 30 frame per second video footage. Now, the way we fix that for corporate work is that we will ask them, or if it's our cameras, we actually run 360. Now, if we know we're streaming at 30 and the primary thing that goes out, we'll go 60 frames a second and put it at a 360 shutter. I'll be honest with you, nobody notices a 60 frame per second at 360 shutter. So what you do is you run the 360 shutter. When you throw half the frames away, you're back down to 180, and then it looks normal. But if you wonder why some things look a little framey when they're streaming, if they go from 60 to 30, and again, if they have interlace at 59.94, oftentimes that'll be the same. You'll have the same problem. So those are things to think about.
Jeffrey Powers.
One more thing that I will add to that is you can start looking at some of these AI programs like Topaz Labs, because it's been saving me on a lot of things. I know that you can scale, you can frame up, but I'm not sure if you can frame down in Topaz, but you can definitely do some of the fixes, the noise reduction, noise addition, with some of the different models out there.
Alex?
Yeah, Jeffrey's right. The Topaz is great. So I use Topaz Video a lot. When I'm doing that conversion that we were just talked about, the 60 to 24, I use Topaz to do that. I don't put it in my NLE and have it try to do that. Topaz will go from 60 to 24 on most things that don't have too much frame rate. So the places where Topaz will break up when you're trying to go from 60 to 24 or 24 to 60 is in sports. So high motion sports, you're going to see it not be able to figure out what was happening there. I will say that the Neat plugin, which is not super expensive, is far more effective for noise removal than Topaz. And so so we tend to lean back into Neat. It's a slow render, so you just need to know it's going to add 400%, 300% to 400% to your render time to go use the Neat plugin inside of Resolve or Final Cut or other things. But it's pretty magical when you watch it. I mean, when you turn it on and off, it's a pretty slick little plugin.
Absolutely. It's one of those times when you're going to be happy if you've got the most powerful computer you can stick on your desktop, because it has a lot of calculation there. The only other thing I'll say is that, once upon a time, I thought it was going to be easy. I was upset because when you're doing work between 24 frames and 30 frames, and in the old days, it was whether it was shot on film or shot on video. There are now so many settings on cameras that you really get occasionally somebody who has really set a camera thinking they were doing the right thing and has set it to something that your editing software or your delivery end deliverable just isn't compatible with. And so you have to do all this frame calculation, and it can be a hassle. So definitely talk to clients and make sure that you know where this is going to be running. And if you can keep everything into consistent frame rates across there, your world will be much easier. So it's worth testing, in my opinion, to make sure that you're conformed to the right frame rate and the right raster across your workflow if that's possible. Next question.
This one's from the QR code. Ryan Summerfield in Sydney, Australia, would love to hear the current recommendation for an affordable USB PTZ webcam to send to remote participants in a kit with a laptop we can control. Would love to be able to pan and tilt from the computer and extra points for dialing in exposure.
Alex?
Well, the most cost-effective one, if you're connecting it to a computer, what I would say is that I'd probably just go with a webcam. I don't think I would probably try to get something bigger, mostly because of the cost. If you're talking about cost effectiveness, there's lots of stuff. The tail that Jeffrey just showed looks like it's got a great sensor in it. And you can go higher to the Canon CN series or the Sony FR series. There's lots of things you can do. It depends on what your budget is on how that works. But if you're doing cost-effective, what I would look at is probably the initial one that I have a lot of that we've sent out in the past are the Insta360 links, not the new one, not the older one, the version 1 levels. You just don't know whether civilians are going to be able to level their computer, and having it be able to kind of level its head makes a big difference. So that's one thing to think about. One thing that I'm looking at using for another project is actually the OBSBot. And this is the Tiny 2, and so this is a little less expensive than the tail. It doesn't have all the fancy stuff on the back end, but I think it has the same chip. So it's got a 1.1/1.5 CMOS webcam. I'd be very surprised if they made two different sensors that were exactly the same size. That would not be efficient for OBSBot. So I think for $300, you're getting a pretty solid sensor in there for that one. So we're looking at that one to put into a couple projects that we're working with right now. So we think that that one might be a good one. So those could be in your very cost-effective. If you're sending the computer out, you're controlling the computer, you don't need SRT or other things like that because the computer's there. Inside of the question that you've asked, those would be the two that I would look at.
Jeffrey Powers had some thoughts.
Yeah, and I do have the Tiny 2 and the Tiny 2 Lite, and yeah, it's the same sensor.
Okay, there you go. Next question.
Another QR question from Manzi Elaine Elize in Kigali, Rwanda. I am a multimedia freelancer. Help me to know, how can you know the white balance of given place, whether it's outdoor or indoor? I've watched YouTube videos, but none helped me. Some say you detected white balance when you place white piece in front of camera. Thanks.
Alex, help him out.
So it depends. I know this is my favorite way to answer it, but you want to think about a couple things. Here's what it depends on: are you doing a live, or are you doing for post? So that's the big thing that you have to decide on. Are you working in Rec 709 or are you shooting log? Are you doing, so Rec 709 is the standard television color space that you would see, and it's a pretty limited box. If you have a camera that can shoot in log, then you sometimes, like a lot of our Blackmagic cameras, if we're doing it in post, we're going to try to shoot in log so that we have more room to make corrections later, white balance and so on and so forth. But if you can't do that, then you also want to try to record at the highest quality you possibly can, so that if you're recording, so that you have room. So what you're looking for is preferably a 10-bit solution, because that's going to give you a lot more headroom. So basically, instead of having between every, for color, you basically have a 1024 steps instead of 256 steps. And that means that you won't see as much posterization when you make harder adjustments. The key is really to get as close as you can, to white balance. If you're using multi-camera, I will almost never use white balance, an automatic white balance. In fact, I almost never use white balance at all. So what I do is I set that white balance, because it's very rare for me to use one camera. And usually what I want to do is I want to lock my white balance of all the cameras to the same thing. I don't want them randomly trying to figure it out. If you want to do the white balance and you're doing a Rec 709 and it's fast and furious and you're going to do that, what you need to do is fill the frame with a white piece of paper. That is correct. And then you'll hit the white balance button, and you'll see it'll snap into it looking white, and then everything will be corrected against that. But here's the key: make sure that you're doing it in exactly the same environment that you are actually going to shoot in. So you need to be able to have the camera in a place that can see that. So a whiteboard or whatever. Like, for instance, we've had people white balance something off stage and then shoot on stage, and they can't figure out why it's all different. Well, there's a bunch of different whites there. So you have to shoot it in the environment that you're going to do it in. I find that to be a little bit chaotic. So a lot of times I'm trying to figure out. Of course, you can get light meters that will tell you what the color is. So you can walk out there and measure that. That's a great thing. I don't know if you may not have one of those. So as a freelancer, but that's another way to do that. Your phone will actually tell you what it thinks it is. But the main thing is that I try to set those things rather than using a white balance. I try to measure the white balance and then set all the cameras to that, so that they're all consistent. And then if you're doing multiple cameras, I try to keep it the same make and model of cameras, the same make and model of lenses. Now the issue is sometimes you have longer lenses and shorter lenses. Each lens will be slightly different than the other one. Even if two Canon lenses, sometimes two 24-70s will be different, but a 24-70 and a 100-400 will definitely be different. And because it's going through a different set of filters and a different set of glass. And so these are all things that, if you're doing a live cut, becomes a problem. If you get really close and all your settings are the same between the same camera models with similar lenses, you're going to be close enough that if you shoot high quality video, you can correct it later. Now, another thing to do that's really good if you're doing this for post, if you're shooting something, is to use something like this. This is an X-Rite. This is a color checker. This is something you can throw in your backpack. It's not super expensive. And we put this over top. This one actually is designed in Resolve, if you take this and put it at the beginning of your clip, you can actually lay over. There's a color correction tool in Resolve that lays over this specific pattern and will color correct your clip. Will it be as good as a colorist? No, it will not. But will it be good enough for many people if they don't know how to do color? You might find it to be useful, at least to get you in the ballpark. So a couple things to think about there.
And Manzi, since you noted the place was important to you, you're probably shooting live and you want to make sure. The other piece of this puzzle is that light conditions change over the course of time. So if I go out at 10 o'clock in the morning and I do a white balance for an event that's going to last for a couple of hours, it is not unusual that clouds will come in or something will change and the color temperature will change. In magic hour, that's before sunrise and just the 20 minutes or a half an hour at sunset, your white balance is changing constantly. So it's not uncommon to re-white balance as those light conditions change to keep up with it, unless you like the effect you're getting. Also on indoor, somebody can easily switch on a tungsten light in a scene that you have, and that's going to change your color balance, and you may need to rebalance there. It is better than it used to be because there are more better color rendering index lights available at reasonable prices now than there was when I started out. We had either tungsten or a few other technologies. There was daylight, there was tungsten, there were HDMIs and things like, or HMI lighting, halide mercury. That all had different color balances, but there were only a few standards, and now there's a lot more variability out there. So just know that, learn to see the monitor picture and whether you think it has a color cast, and if so, that whatever caused that color cast to change, it might be a good time to re-white balance and see if you can get things back to normal. Just some tips. Next question.
This one is from Harshi Trivedi from Daytona Beach, Florida, USA. I'm always fascinated by the correct ways to pack your kits, wires, cables, call it whatever. But being a person with low vision, can you show me how to wrap a cable or two? I have 3.5 to 3.5, 10 feet, and an HDMI 3 to 6 feet. I guess the same concept goes for both.
Alex is going to help you here. Alex?
I'm trying to grab a
I'm
cable.
not hearing you. Oh, okay. There we go.
So the thing is you're doing over under. So the first one is over. So it just is a regular one here. And the next one is you twist it the other direction is under. And then you go over. So basically the cable, it's kind of really hard to show here, and we probably do a whole show here, but the cable is going over top of itself. And then when you twist it the other direction, it goes underneath itself. So it's wrapping back and forth. And the advantage of that is that it will, when you throw it out, and number one is it takes a lot of stress off the cable when you're wrapping it, so it doesn't keep twisting. And number two is that it rolls out. If you throw it out, it should just go out without any tangling or anything else. Little known fact is number three is if you pull this through itself, it'll create a knot at the same distance that is the diameter of your thing. Now that is generally a bug. Usually when you see someone throw something out and there's a whole bunch of regular knots, but if you're building a rope that you have to climb up, it's a super fast way to do all your knots. so when we were, so you do an over under with a big thick rope, and then you pull it through the center, and then pull it out, and it'll just knock out all your knots and climb up it. In case you're wondering, it's a fast way to do it.
I didn't know that.
Regular.
That's great.
They're all regular. That's key.
If you want that white on black, right? Twist right, twist left. I'm doing it really small. Twist right, twist left, and that just comes together and forms a lovely little thing. And as he said, once you do that, it comes out
and
clean.
Do it
all
the
time. A
time.
little better white on.
Do it with every cable.
Yeah, you can tell
everything.
how long somebody's been doing this because it takes 5 seconds to do a long cable. You just get really used to it.
The one thing I will say is
before we say goodbye.
I was going to say the one thing is don't do the elbow thing. They won't let you back on set.
People will frown at you. Next, Alexander, quick.
Yeah, and just a couple things too. The goal is to, when you finish wrapping, Harshit, you want to try to get, when you're done the wrap, the conductor should really be on the outside of the cable, to Alex's point too, because if they're in the middle of the cable, you've done it wrong, and you will quickly find that when you toss that wire, you are going to get knots. And by the way, when we meet in person at some point, we will have a cable wrapping competition, and you're not leaving until we can throw perfect ones. So we're definitely going to get it. You got to yell fire in the hole when you're doing that in public, though, because you can really hurt someone.
Perfect. Listen, thank you everybody for watching today. We truly appreciate it. We cannot do this show without the people who always show up every day. Our panelists who show up on the panel every day to express their expertise and just give away advice freely from all their years of study and actual practical experience. To our producers, those of you who are asking questions, driving this show by your curiosity and helping us get this going every day, and our amazing back-end crew, the people the unsung heroes sitting at computers all over the world and outside of the show who are helping us organize all the details of bringing this show to you every single day. So all of those people, we appreciate every single one of them. Our Talak traversal today, if you were to try to go around and get this information in person, 37,000 miles is how far you would have traveled today, 59,000 kilometers. That is 289 million bananas for scale. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
I've always wanted to do a production Olympics, so instead of the 25, it's a 25 meter cable roll. The 25 meter, 100 meter cable roll. Well, he's pretty fast at the 25 meter, but not as fast as the 100 meter.
What
Mickey
a really
pointed at the
separated
Japanese
degaff tape gunking a long cable.
Yeah,
On the old show.
Somebody didn't take up their tape first.
I'm saying it's good
piano
lighting.
show.
Goof off and a rag.
I am not at all surprised that Japan has cable wrapping competitions. That is so Japanese.
I think we have to. So we've been talking about it for a decade. Of we got to have Olympics, and then you can have motion capture wanding, because you have to wand. You have to do this dance that you wand. It could be measured for art, for technical accuracy.
What would cause you to be disqualified though?